Okay.
Are
Should
you
we?
are you ready to
Yeah,
die harder with a vengeance?
I am Mr. Falcon.
Okay, good. The eagle has landed. Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Post Credits Podcast. This is our Christmas episode of the year, and we're gonna zig a
Yeah.
little bit instead of going the route that you might predict. So we're not doing Die Hard. We're gonna do Die Hard 2, which is somehow a Christmas movie, but not really because it takes
Again.
place during
y-
Christmas week.
Right.
I kept noticing that about this one where, there was so much of this where it's like, oh, hey, it's just Christmas all over again, and here we go again, that kind of thing. And then characters kept going out of their way to say that it was what a start to Christmas week. Like, who says that?
Right. Like I've never thought of there's a week of Christmas, like Shark Week.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
right. Like that's kind of how it feels like. And it's Christmas week.
Hmm.
We're just gonna show Santa attacking people.
Yeah. We know
But
we need all the ingredients so people know that this is a sequel to Die Hard. It's
right.
we need terrorists, we need Christmas, we need hostages.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things that I want to bring up because it's as a whole, this movie has all the elements that would make it a good action movie. But then if like you
A
kind of
good
like look
'90s
at it,
action movie.
right? Well, if you look at it like you get closer, it's like Monet, right? Like a Monet from the back looks pretty good, but then it just kind of looks like shit when you're standing inches from it. So when
Okay,
you start to break down this movie a little bit, it does start unraveling,
it
you know.
does. Yeah, like the Christmas
Yeah.
sweater pulling at a thread, and
Yeah,
it's
from the
just
bottom, and then before you know it, you're just left with sleeves and nothing to keep you warm. So
so bigger picture. Let's just paint in broad strokes for a second.
it's fun. It's a fun action movie,
Okay.
you know? Like it's fine. It's really fine. But like that's where it ends, is it being fine, you know?
Hmm.
Like I bring up Chris Stuckman a lot. Like I really like his reviews and he gave this movie like a B minus. And I would say that that's fair, right? Because it has like cool things in it, right? Like the explosion of the cockpit from the grenades, and then it's like, and then you got the top view, and McLean is in the seat, blasting off, escaping near death.
Hmm.
But seconds before, you have grenades that take 30 seconds to explode,
Long
right?
enough for him to look at him
Yeah. So it's like
stupidly.
yeah, you got this cool
Oh
thing, but
shit! And then
before,
strap
yeah,
himself in and
do all of that, yeah, before a grenade explodes. But the thing of it is like just before that cool thing happened, like something really dumb happened. And that was like the grenades taking forever to explode. So it's like
and there's
that's the
30 of
thing.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they keep I rewatched that and it's really because it's like five or six are thrown in. So there's like five or six grenades in a pile.
Hmm.
And then he's like, oh my God, there's grenades in a pile. So then you see him like rush to the cockpit chair, strap in. He's strapped in, and then like three more grenades are thrown in. So it's like now there's like eight grenades in the cockpit.
Yeah,
Not
because
one of them have exploded.
there were three of them. And like, how many grenades do we got? Three to a man. Okay, use them all.
Yeah, throw them all in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a long time where it's like it's almost comical, but it's not. Like they're just like, this is so suspenseful, guys. He's like, we're shooting this thing and he's barely escaping death, but it's like everyone else is like, don't these things explode in like 2 seconds? Like as soon as the little clip handlebar thing flies off, like that's it, right? Like you gotta throw it or your hand's gonna not be there, right?
I think you've got 2 seconds. I want to say.
Yeah. That's like, dude, I could say, oh shit, and then they'd explode. But John McClane gets to rocket to the moon, you know?
Right.
Like, so that's what I mean. Like, it's fine
It looks
because there's
cool,
some
but when you
cool
think about it,
things visually, but then it's like, well, wait a minute. That happens quite a bit. Like another wait a minute, wait just a goddamn minute is when McClane proves to Lorenzo, the NYPD blue guy, that there's blanks in the gun.
that for my money is the dumbest thing in the entire movie. So
Yes.
let's come back to that.
All right.
Because yeah, that to me was the one of the things where I was watching it. Not even this time, many times ago. It's like,
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wait just a minute. You know?
So I like it too as a dumb action movie. Like I think a B minus is kind of a fair score because it's really well shot. It does have some inventive action set pieces. Things get a little confusing in some of the shootouts, but you know that like there's still some really cool like, oh, he just stabbed that guy through the eye with an icicle, like, whoa, that's badass kind of
Right.
stuff. um but when you do
Wait,
think
hold on,
about
hold
it,
on,
that's
hold
when it
on.
falls apart.
Wasn't there ice bullets in one of the Steven Seagal movies?
i I'm not
The
up on
Glimmer
Steven
Man.
Seagal
I
at
think
all.
there's ice bullets in the Glimmer Man. Like Steven
Didn't
Seagal
see
shot
that
people
one.
with ice bullets. That's the one with one of the
Really?
Wayne's brothers. I think so because there was in one of the movies. I'm pretty sure it was Steven Seagal. There was like the CSI people there, and they're trying to figure out what it was that killed this person. They're like, we don't have any slugs. Like it was ice bullets, and they melted inside the body. Some shit like that, where it's like that was like we can't find this killer because he used ice bullets. And I'm pretty sure that that would only fly in a Steven Seagal movie. You know, like that would be just like, yeah. You mean they don't melt before they are shot out of the barrel?
Well, I
You
mean,
know,
let alone that
no,
they
this is a
can
Steven Seagal movie. What are you thinking?
withstand the act of firing, you know, because
Right, right,
let's unpack that a little bit further, right? The Man with the Golden Gun, you know, famous
sure.
James Bond movie. I've got a book on my shelf, The Science of James Bond, and in that book, they break down the fact that when a bullet hits and then triggers that amount of heat would actually destroy the bullet if it was in fact made of gold.
Oh,
So
because it's too hot,
a
right? Like
gold bullet, right, from the propellant could not do that kind of damage. So ice bullets can, because Steven Seagal. Even worse.
I think they were, to be fair, I think they were dry ice. Okay. All right. Dry ice.
So dry ice is
Harder ice.
tougher
Harder
than
ice.
gold. That's what.
Yeah.
That's what. Oh my God! Hey,
That's the playground logic.
you just came up with a better title for Cool as Ice, or the sequel to that is like Harder Than Ice or something.
Ice cold.
Harder Than Ice.
Yeah, with a subtitle though. That's the only way to do a movie like that.
Or is that like Cool as Ice 2, Harder Than Ice? Could that be the
No.
subtitle?
Ice harder.
Um,
Cool as Ice 2, Ice harder.
Sure, why not? So, nonsense
Right.
across the board.
Yes. This is also when I watched the other Die Hard movies, not so much in 3 or this one, but the other two. Good Day to Die Hard and what's the other one?
Live Free or Die Hard.
Yes.
Okay.
That there was like a comic book. It got kind of comic booky. That's what I always thought with those two movies. But I realized it really started with this one, the comic booky aspect, like let's just be dumb type of thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like the first Die Hard, it's almost exactly like the Jaws series, where it's like the first one's really good, and then it's like diminishing returns after that. Like Jaws 2 is okay, it's fine, but it's kind of the same thing as like Die Hard. Same type of feeling for me. Die Hard 2 is to Jaws
Yeah.
2.
Well,
Whereas like the first Jaws and the first Die Hard really fucking good, but the sequels are you know.
he's he's still kind of a superhero in the first Die Hard. And that was one of my notes too, is like in the original Die Hard, John McClane's an everyman in an impossible situation. And it's almost plausible. Like there's still some action movie logic where he gets shot through the shoulder and just a minute later he's totally fine shooting a machine gun.
Yeah, that would break your shoulder blade. If it didn't go through, your shoulder blade's like shattered.
And it wasn't through and through because he ran and then it like there's blood on the door. Like
Yeah.
like and it's on the door.
Yeah.
Like so that happened. But it's just the execution of it is it's almost plausible. I don't think the villains were quite as omnipotent. And
yeah,
I think
let's talk about that.
Well, I think part of just to put a pin in that thought there, I think part of the thing that like the difference between like Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2 is like we've got all those ingredients, but how do we take it to the next level?
Yes.
And in taking that to that next level, that's when you start to kind of fall upon the pratfalls of the, well, this is cartoony now. Now we're exaggerating this. Now the physical abuse is too much, and he's just kind of the Energizer Bunny. And I do feel like that kind of happened in this movie because you didn't have like the limping with the walking on glass. He wasn't invincible like Steven Seagal is in every fucking movie he ever makes. It was like he gets his ass beat a lot, but man, he gets his ass beat a lot. And there just doesn't seem to be any consequences other than shaking it off and you just got some blood running down your head.
Yeah, some new blood.
Yeah.
Some blood in other spots now.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing, the main difference that I feel like where Die Hard worked and this one doesn't, or makes it less than, is the relationship that John McClane had with each villain. And in the first one, like Hans Gruber has this perfect plan that he's meticulously thought up. And it's this blue collar super cop that's kind of fucking with him the whole time. But they did a really good job of making us not like Hans Gruber, right? But then but that was matched with our enjoyment of John McClane fucking up Hans Gruber's plans somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what the I have this plan, I'm going to go after it. And then John McClane always being there to be a monkey wrench throughout the whole plot of that movie, right?
Fly in the ointment, Hans.
Yeah.
Monkey in the wrench. Pain in the ass.
But in this one, the Colonel has a plan and basically executes that plan with little or no friction from McClane. And the only time that McClane really stops anything is the finale, the ending, where he blows up the plane that they're taking off in. He doesn't stop anything. The Colonel doesn't have to change any of his plans. And it's John McClane always playing catch up, and kind of ruffling some feathers, but not like stopping some stuff.
Yeah.
Just kind of there,
Like the original, he's kind of dealing with a hostile police force where they're they're against his being there. They're against listening to him because who are you? What are you doing here? But I think in the original you had Al Powell as kind of an anchor where he sees something that's going on and he's kind of pushing for organizing things on the ground, whereas in this one it's like, well, what if we took that but the ally cop also hates him, and that's Dennis Franz,
right?
And then he's just even more poisonous.
Right.
Just Dennis Franz being Dennis Franz to the maximum level of what he was known for at that point in time, just being like this hard-nosed terrible person to deal with.
Yeah, and even Holly Gennaro from the first one, it's not like she had a huge role in the movie, but there were times in the first Die Hard where she was like, she was the only one that knew that her husband was there and that her ex-husband, kind of, it seems like they're getting separated, but like she's the only one who knew he was there, and he, like, no one else knew that he was a cop either, right? So she's trying, in the first one, she's like trying to do her best to help him and protect him at the same time, right? And she's now just in the plane, kind of having to deal with Gregory Peck or whatever his name is, Mr. Peck.
Yeah.
From is that the same guy?
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also make a joke about how your name is Dick.
Oh.
You know, because that guy just needs to be totally, like, after both of these movies and Ghostbusters, like, we just have to hate him as a human being.
He was also in Real Genius as like the dickhead professor.
Oh,
you know,
of course,
with Val Kilmer. So
yeah,
he's that guy too. You know, yeah, we're conditioned to hate this actor. That must be a horrible life to live. He was in an interview for like one of the Ghostbusters movies, probably the first one, and he was like, yeah, for a really long time, he's like, I live in New York, and for a really long time, I'd just be walking down the street and someone would yell at me because they hated my character in Star Wars, or not Star Wars, Ghostbusters. So yeah, I must get it all the time. That would be a horrible life to live. Like a character you played so well that the world hates you for playing him. That's the worst.
I got a screenshot somewhere of like I was in the toy aisle, and you know, they had some Ghostbusters toys, and they had like the William Peck action figures for Ghostbusters, and that was the only one on the peg. You know,
of course.
Like, we're not buying your shit. What are you gonna do? Like, you know, you buy him so he can, you know, put EPA sanctions on your other toys. Like, come on now. Like,
right.
Why are they on the same plane? I mean, they were both like Los Angeles natives last time, and like, so they're on the plane to go visit DC. Holly Gennaro is, because that's where her parents live. That's why John McClane's there. Why is he on the plane other than just like, once again, it's like the same ingredient we need back to do something to have people provoke the same response.
Oh, it's the same people. Yeah, it's a weird one, right? Because no one liked that character. For obvious reasons, no one liked him. You shouldn't like the character. That's what he's there for. But I'll say this though, like, I don't think it's necessary to have the same characters back if you want to have someone just kind of be the dickhead of the movie. I feel like we got that with Chief Lorenzo there. Like, we didn't need another one, right? We didn't need another like crazy, you know, jerk running around being in the way, you know, or trying to cause problems. It's like, well, you got the terrorist and his posse, which is like 100, and then you also got Lorenzo, and now it's like, hey, we're gonna bring back the anchor. You know, like the whole plane thing is only there to have those two characters on the screen again. You know, having them in the plane is only to be like, oh, we can get the anchor back. He can cause some things. You know, oh, we can get Holly Gennaro back. She can do some things, but she doesn't really do anything. She's just there because we saw her before. And same with this anchor. He doesn't really do anything. And then she tases him on the plane. I just want to know, even before 9/11, I think a taser would be confiscated. You know, like,
I gotta just correct you there. That's a stun gun.
That's pedantic.
I'm just saying. It is pedantic.
I'm just saying that I think everyone understands what I'm saying.
Yeah. So. But it's confusing because the thing you hold in your hand is a stun gun, even though it's not a gun. And the thing that you shoot at people, that's a taser.
For the rest of my life.
And people will, but they're wrong. So
I think everyone listening, hey listeners, did you understand what I said when I said taser? I think they all got it.
Yes, and they all benefited from the clarity that I just put there.
Mm, I don't know. I think they're like, why did he interrupt him? We know, we got it. It's a taser. Who cares? Or a stun gun. It's a thing that
Yeah.
shoots electricity.
Used interchangeably like CDs and records.
That is true.
Yep.
That is very true.
Yep. So anyhow, yeah, gets stunned by the old lady who is next to him just for being a jerk.
No, first, actually, Holly Gennaro stunned him. So
No,
I don't know how she
yeah,
got it.
from the old lady who was just
Right.
conveniently not there whenever he needed to lean in to violate the restraining order that he was complaining about being on the same plane.
Right. I don't know.
One of several logic flaws in this movie. And the fact that they noticed each other for the first time when they're on the plane is a little suspect because, I've gotten on an airplane, you've gotten on an airplane. You usually sit in the waiting area for a decent amount of time before you board the plane, whether people are in first class or coach or not. So they probably would have seen each other, it stands to reason,
Right.
before they got on the plane and then raised this concern. But because it's a movie, it's that whole thing where it's like, hey, come on, let's go. What, can't you tell me now? No, there's no time. I'll tell you when we get there. And they cut to when they get there, and then there's the explanation.
Right. Like, well, couldn't you just, we're going somewhere. Couldn't you just tell me as we're going somewhere?
No, there's no time. We got to get there now. Cut to, you're there. Explanation.
Yeah.
It's
And
that
now I'll tell
like
you.
truncated movie storytelling that you don't question when you're watching it until you stop to unpack it, and then you're like, no, wait, that's not how that works.
Right.
Just to touch back on the other characters in this movie, Robert Patrick, who was the T-1000, the cop who gives John McClane the ticket in the beginning, who's the brother of Dennis Franz later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you recognize him?
Yeah, but I can't place him. It's one of those people where it's like, I know him, but
I got
can't
the
remember
voice.
Where.
He's Detective Bullock on Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, I wouldn't have even, that wouldn't even been in my wheelhouse. I couldn't have. Yeah, kudos to you, but I wouldn't have remembered that.
Not a big Batman Animated Series guy.
I'm not a big animation guy.
Okay,
Like,
all right.
like, I'm just not my thing for whatever reason. And just so you're all aware, I went to art school, and I'm like, it's kind of like sacrilegious, right? Where it's like, oh, you got to be into the animation because it's like it's kind of a similar art form to like what you went to school for. But no, it takes a lot for me to get into animation. I don't know.
What was with William Sadler in the church, right? Where like, you failed me. Like, so this is after the baggage claim shootout. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
and he pulls the trigger. He's like, if you fail me next again, there won't be an empty bullet in there.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I want to beat up on there, but did
Yeah,
that
let's do it.
make a wave with you at all, or were you just like,
No, I thought it was showboating. The Colonel Sadler, like, why even do that? I feel, wouldn't that like crank up the animosity of like the soldiers that are working for you at the same time of like trying to intimidate one of them, like you kind of put distrust in all of them, I feel like that's what that thing would have done. So I don't know what the point was to threaten a minion like that, and because it's not even that like he pistol whipped him or something. It's just like a psychological fuck you. you know,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna pretend
there
like I'm
wasn't a
gonna
crowd
fucking
around
kill you.
this, or yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But then
So,
yeah, like I don't know. It seemed unnecessary. And I don't even remember what the guy did that was not cool,
well, he
you
just
know?
failed to kill John McClane, and his buddy got killed in the baggage claim, which even that is questionable because it's like McClane crushes his head as he's going through the baggage claim there, but then it's like it automatically raises for other shit coming through. So it's like, wait a minute, like could this not raise because it didn't sense a person? How did he die there? I don't know.
Yep.
That's like, but you don't question it when you're watching. You're just like, oh, that guy got smashed. Like, fuck yeah, McClane. Um, I don't know with the guy in the church there because that was like he got away. Um, but so is he just like is William Sadler just walking around with an unchambered pistol to randomly threaten goons with? But it also kind of falls into that weird trope of like 90s bad guys where it's like I'm going to kill my minion because you failed just to like I don't know, prove that I'm evil.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. And on top of that, why didn't like because the whole thing about blanks, part of the whole thing is like that it's a double cross on a double cross, or kind of like everyone's in on it except John McClane and the police force and the passengers. But there's a lot of other people, more than you would think, that are in on this airport takeover to escape having to get a to rescue, I guess, a dictator of a made up country, you know?
Right.
Uh, so, like,
We don't want to say it's
but,
Pablo Escobar.
right. But here's the thing about the blanks, right? And this specific thing. Like, a blank can still be painful, and a blank can still kill you, and a blank is still loud like a normal round is, you know? So if you wanted to prove a point, why not just hold the gun up to the guy's eardrum and pull the trigger?
Well, but
You know, if you
he
like
didn't
really
use a
wanted to
blank.
be no, he didn't even pull right, but I'm saying like he could have he didn't fire the gun.
No,
It was the
he did. It
safety
was
was on.
click. It
Well, he
was
pulled the
click.
trigger, but he
Yeah.
didn't like the gun didn't fire,
Yeah.
you
Because
know?
next time the chamber won't be empty. So
Right,
he's just
but it's
walking
like
around with a gun that doesn't have didn't no blanks, no bullets, no
right,
nothing.
I'm trying to get to a point though. Like the why not do something else with if you wanted to intimidate a soldier? I don't think shooting a unchambered pistol is the right move when you have blanks at your disposal.
Hmm. Which are color coded. I don't know if you
Right.
noticed that because like the red like the magazines have blue tape around them that are blanks, and the magazines that have live fire have red around them.
Right. Right.
Um, I don't think we're supposed to pick up on that our first time watching it. I
The
think that's supposed
blanks?
to be one of the things where it's like, oh, this is really clever, and when you rewatch it, the thinking on their part, on the filmmaker's part, is that you'll go back and you're like, oh, because they had blue tape, those are the blanks, and you can tell the whole time what has blanks or not. That whole subplot has a lot of problems. We're not
Yeah.
quite there yet, but we can
Well,
get into that.
yeah, I think we do it now. I think we get into the blanks now.
Okay.
Like all of it. I don't like this. This whole blank we're shooting blanks. To me it just seems like it's like I guess if you're play acting and you want people to believe certain things are happening over others, yeah, you would use blanks.
Hmm.
To me, that just seems like now you're introducing in like a new cog to this giant machine that's its purpose is only trying to get a dictator to another country. who's been captured, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you go through all of this? This seems like so much extra work just to do what? Because explain that to me, if you could. What's the purpose of the blanks in this movie? The bullet blanks. What's the purpose?
So much of this is just because movie, right? Because, you brought up the general, right?
Yeah.
So he's a prisoner played by Franco Nero, who's kind of an Italian action star, who was in that movie Street Law that we almost watched that I mentioned. Has a cameo in John Wick 2. I mean, like, he's acknowledged as like this kind of Italian, action
Yeah.
person, and he shows up in American movies. That's really cool. But so he's a prisoner because he's not Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
This is America's first prisoner from the war on drugs kind of thing. But he's a prisoner, but he's still dressed like a general. Like, because that's just the kind of
Yeah.
visual shorthand this movie uses, because you don't, like, you give the audience credit but you don't really or you don't
Right.
expect them to think things through past just their surface level of anything. And I think that's where the segue to the blanks comes in, because so much of that has to go perfectly to the omnipotence villain's plan for that even to be a consideration in the same ballpark, the same sport, right? Because the not the SWAT team. The SWAT team comes in from the airport. They get blown away by Robert Patrick, the Terminator there, and then John McClane kills him. And the totally obvious dummy. Worst dummy, one of the worst dummies I've ever seen, when he pushes the scaffolding over and it just kills the guy. But anyway,
Right.
so then they escalate because the SWAT team failed, and then you get like this Army Special Forces team to come in,
Mm-hmm.
who has to be the guy who's in cahoots with the colonel.
Yes. Yes.
That alone is so questionable that they would cherry pick this one Special Forces team who has a personal connection with him and who are
Right.
also all crooked, but then that
Like
they can get
the conspiracy that you would have to have in place to get to this moment of the Green Berets, the uh general, and then the colonel and his crew there. The conspiracy is so great where it's like you're talking about like thousands of people at this point would have to know that this airport's going to be taken over, because of like having to have the general and his Green Beret unit also be firing blanks, like be in on it. Like you said, they were the ones selected to come here, so whoever knew, who the terrorists must have known that this is the exact Green Beret team that's going to get sent to us.
right.
It's like, how many people know? How many people know that this airport was going to be taken over on Christmas week?
Well,
of all times,
yeah.
Christmas week.
And let's take it one step further, right? So how would they have even gotten to the church had John McClane not fallen into their plot and uncovered that information?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that. That's why it's fine. It's just fine.
so the crooked team would have gotten called in as the counter-terrorist unit, but then they never would have found the church unless McClane happened upon their plan, and then they wouldn't have needed the blanks to fire at each other in this phony shootout.
Indeed.
The whole thing's just such a house of cards. It all you just take one out there, and the whole thing just comes cascading down.
Yeah. Not to mention, how did John McClane survive his demonstration that the bullets were blank? And just how did he survive that? Because he holds an Uzi to the stomach of the chief.
It's an MP5.
I'm done.
And Dennis Franz is back up against the window, just kind of like cowering.
Yeah.
But the entire police department would have blown him away because they didn't know that the machine gun that he held up was shooting blanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of silly.
No, it's really silly. And then he just plays it off like, oh, yeah.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
typical John McClane attitude. Yeah, no, that was the first thing many viewings ago that made me kind of like go back through and question like just the logic of the way that this unfolds.
I'm sorry, say it again.
That
Like
was
the logic
of the way that this unfolds, right? Because the twists upon twists, like I didn't question it because I was in the moment and it was fine, but for whatever reason that broke the movie for me.
the whole blanks with the like
In the police station
scenario.
Yeah, in the police station. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's completely stupid. Like by the time that you heard a first round go off from his Uzi, it's so many cops would have drawn their guns and mowed him down. Like he wouldn't have been able to say that they're blanks because he would have already been dead. You know,
right? So instead of just saying that, hey, they were blanks, he goes to the stupidest thing that you could possibly do.
Right.
Because it's shocking for the sake of being in a movie.
Right. But like, it doesn't make any sense. Like when this is how easy the movie like unravels when you're like, when you start breaking these little things down, and they do kind of seem like little things, but it's enough little things where you're like, oh, okay, now we're getting to ridiculousness on drastic proportions, you know. So that's why it's fine. You know, it's just fine.
Yeah.
You know. And then it's really like this John McClane doesn't need to be in this movie too much at all. It's only for like a couple reasons. One you've already said, and that's basically like letting the general know where the colonel's troops are at, which is the church.
Right.
The other reason that John McClane needs to be in this movie is to light the plane on fire at the end, you know? Other than that, he doesn't need to be in this movie. It's not as bad as, I mean, it's very close, almost too close to Raiders of the Lost Ark in that regard, you know. But because if you take Indiana Jones out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the same things would have happened. There would have been no difference in the result to the Nazis of that movie.
Interesting. I think the only difference would have been when the villains think they've succeeded in their plan and they're taking off with General Espresso, who's the only guy who can fly this plane. You have to do this, General. You're the only guy who can fly this. So once again, the whole plan hinges upon this one guy who might not even be there. You know, no backup plan for this. I guess they could have just scattered, you know, just driven off on their snowmobiles and never reconvene. But so like they're on the plane, like high-fiving each other, smoking cigars, like, yeah, you know, we're this badass team of international terrorists. We just pulled this off. Every seat on the plane's filled. Did you notice that?
Yes.
If John McClane hadn't killed the handful of people that he did, would they have been like in standing room only, or like?
Yeah.
Would they have gotten away, or would have they just?
Yeah, there must have been
left there. Did they plan for the casualties?
Yeah, well, they must have. I mean, they planned for everything else. So like, okay, we're gonna play gunfight here, real bullets here, play gunfight here.
Mm-hmm.
Got that? Don't use real bullets when we're play bulleting.
Right.
You know, like,
And we're just gonna smash out the windows like Western
right.
style.
Yeah.
So, so
Side.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. You no, because I was gonna say something stupid.
Oh,
So go
it's
ahead.
just that the villains are just totally infallible. Just every aspect of their
Oh, they
plan is
are.
perfect.
Yeah, but like perfect, like a writer made it perfect. You know, like perfect, not in reality. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I just it's surprisingly like equal parts good, but like equal parts incompetent. Like there certainly could have been um some more polish to this. Even like uh Bruce Willis had reservations on doing this one because he thought it was like too close to when the first one was released. I don't know. I don't. I yeah. I just thought that yeah, some more polish could have been happened because everything else is here. I think the movie looks fine. There are some fun action sequences in here, but
Mm-hmm.
then there's just like silly stuff in it. Another silly thing. So like in the first person that McClane kills, like there's a sequence where he gets in a fight, he's down, he sees a bike, the guy's running away, he sees a bike, goes after the bike, but like just kind of stands on a pedal, doesn't like bike towards him. He just kind of like pushes a little bit while he's standing on one of the pedals and then jumps off and tackles the guy.
Okay.
But there's like 3 seconds between all of this from like John being on the ground to getting the bike to tackling the guy who's already running away. Makes me think that he was already pretty close. And in the sequence, you're like, yeah, he's pretty close. So why even get the bike to begin with? Just run at him. Because it's not the speed thing. What slowed the guy down, the enemy guy down, was luggage. Because a luggage train came by, so he had no place to go. He had to slow down.
Just
So he would have slowed down
smashed
anyways.
into it.
Well, that's what he did do.
Yeah.
You know, that's what McClane did do. But it's like, why'd you need the bike to do that? You know, like you just run. You could just run at him.
So you could tackle him at a higher speed.
Right. So it's like that just tells me that there's like people on the set of this movie that are like, oh, bike, like shiny. Let's use it. You know? So it's probably on the set somewhere like, oh, we should have John McClane on a bike and then he tackles somebody. That'd be pretty sweet. You know, I don't know. Why? Why? There's a lot of whys.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to, what we said a couple times where like all the ingredients are here of the original, but I think in, how do we amp this up is what makes it feel like the scope is impressive, but it's kind of too big to be plausible anymore. And that's kind of where things start to unravel. The plot's too well thought through in that everything has to go perfect, but it follows that kind of action movie logic of the time where you just didn't question it because the good guy was the good guy. And now it's like I think we're a little bit more cynical. And even back then, I remember renting this back in the day, and like my dad making a comment that he changed magazines so many times that he'd be limping if he was carrying all that ammo.
Right.
So it definitely violated some of its own rules, and it cheapens what made the original good. The ingredients are there, but I think that it just kind of became too big for its own good, and I think that's where a lot of the movie falls apart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would consider it too big for its own good necessarily, just because it's to me like where the movie falls apart is like the plot and the story and like the smaller elements within that larger plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and yeah, like if you if they had more thought into how these kind of things are all combined together, they could have had a stellar movie, because I think what was there was good visually, right? Shit blowing up. It's in the middle of winter, at an airport. You got
Yeah.
numerous things you could have at your disposal that
You
are
know,
airport related.
Rennie Harlan
But,
knows how to make things look cool.
yeah, he does do that, but not so good on like the nuances of the movie. This is actually the least well, I only really think of like Die Hard as the first three movies. Like
Me too.
the
Yeah.
one for some reason I just don't think of the other ones as Die Hard movies, so this is like my least favorite of those three. Obviously the first
Yeah.
one's the best, but
Three's pretty good though.
it is good. It has way less of these like mind-breaking plot holes and like mismanaged areas of the plot,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have that. The one complaint that I have is like the ending seems weird, because it seems a little climactic. It's like you have a climax and then it's like, oh, we need another climax. And then that's when they have the helicopter randomly in some other section that wasn't in New York, but it was like a warehouse, and then the McClane shoots the helicopter with, I want to say Ironside, Jeremy Irons, but the Jeremy Irons thing just seemed like that was shoehorned in there at the last second, right at the end where the helicopter goes into the uh, power cables and then crashes, and
Mm-hmm.
then he decides to call his wife. That all seems like shoehorned in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the rest of it I like a lot.
Yeah, just to tie it back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched the third one in a long time, and I rented this one on digital because I got rid of my old DVD box set. So it was in like those thick double cases that Fox used to put out, where it's like, here's 2 discs, but we make it like 4 discs worth of case on the
Right.
shelf. Got rid of my Die Hard trilogy, and I have the first one on digital. I watched this one, and the compression kind of broke down. I've got really good internet, so I went on Amazon, and the Die Hard Blu-ray box set is like $16 for the first 5 of them.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, you know what? I'll buy that. Sure. So now I get to watch Live Free and Die Hard and A Good Day to Die Hard, because I've never seen either of those. Or maybe I just won't. I've heard the fourth one's actually not terrible.
It's like 2. It's like this one. It's not terrible, but it's like it's more cartoony and less realism.
Okay.
Okay. So, and also it's like each iteration of John McClane, there's less and less humanity in him. So by the end of this run of Die Hard movies, he's just a guy with a gun. Like it's like he's just a curmudgeon. Like in the fourth one, like there's this ongoing joke that's so annoying about him wanting to kill the fuck out of everyone who's dating his daughter, and it's just one guy who's like really nice. And it's like this, I don't like this in general, of like, okay, his adult daughter who's in college has a dad who's like, I'm gonna kill any dick that gets near my daughter, is just so dumb to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's stupid. And there's celebrities like behave like this, and it's like, having sex is kind of a normal function, and if she's not a lesbian, like she's gonna have a man with her, like, I don't know, telling a 20 something what they can do even if it's their dad just seems so fucking cringe. But that is John McClane in 5 or in 4, and it gets worse in 5. So
okay.
Yeah, I guess 5 is like just a piece of shit. But I don't know, I haven't seen it.
That's the one that takes place in Russia.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. Well, his son's in this one, See, it was his daughter in the fourth one. Now it's his son as his sidekick.
Okay.
Cool.
No, maybe I'll stop after the fourth one because I've heard it's okay. I haven't heard anyone say the fifth one's worth watching though. So I'll put that over there with like Ninja Turtles 3 and The Godfather Part 3, where it's like they're part of these box sets, but I'm just not going to watch these.
That's probably I haven't watched it. I haven't had an interest to. I didn't after the fourth one. The fourth one was enough for me to write the rest of the series off, and they still keep coming out with them. Well, still, it's been 11 years since the last one, so and probably not going to get another one unless they reboot it. You know,
Yeah, that's fine.
do
I'm
do an
fine with that.
do an extended universe with Lethal Weapon. You know, yeah, yeah, like McClane comes out to LA to visit his estranged wife for
Uh-huh.
Christmas, right?
And then
And then
Tommy
he
Atkins is
comes
the chief.
across right, and then he comes across like a fake drug bust, but it's Mel Gibson, as the cop. And that's how they meet, you know, in a Christmas tree lot, you know?
Okay.
That's where they could meet, you know.
If somehow we could just mix another 48 hours into this, we'd have a real cinematic universe.
Beverly Hills Cop. Bring them all together.
Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
Throw them all in. Why not? Tom Atkins can be the boss to any one of those. I'll watch that.
Yeah. Where do you cop at? Oh, I cop at Detroit.
Oh, well.
They really could do. What are other cops? What are other super cops? Oh, there's Jackie Chan, who's literally a super cop.
The super cop, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we could get all of them together. They could all be cops in California for a day, taking down what's popular.
Hey,
It can't be drugs again.
it's
Not cocaine again.
That's Rush Hour 4. Just like the Expendables version of it, so
Right. Yeah, all the people that have ever played a cop, we need to all get them together for one more movie, and it needs to take place in LA.
within the time span of 48 hours.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
A long 48 hours.
To Die Harder.
Yeah.
A Beverly Hills 48 Hours to Die Harder.
Right.
I don't know. There's infinite permutations of that. I don't dislike this movie despite its faults, and I don't know if that's because of seeing it when I was younger and thinking it was cool in that like 90s way where you just kind of forgive everything. I do think there's something about it where it's like you can look past kind of the dumb crap and just sort of enjoy it, switch off, and
it's not so bad that you can't do that. But I think if you see it enough, like frequently, like if you saw it twice in a year, you'd probably be like, man, what the hell? Because it'd still be fresh in your memory.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. I see this once every like 5 or 6 years. It's such a long time in between each Die Hard 2 watch.
Yeah.
But 1 and 3 I can watch pretty regularly.
Yeah. Well, 3's not tied to Christmas and 1 is, so you just, it's not Christmas if Hans Gruber doesn't fall off the Nakatomi Plaza.
That's true.
So, you watch that one at Christmas, Die Hard 2, like, we've done that. And then you just watch the third one whenever you get around to it because it's not tied to a holiday.
Right. I actually think of watching Die Hard 3 whenever I watch Independence Day for whatever reason. I don't know why. I just thought I'd share that. So if I watch Independence Day, usually Die Hard 3 is right around the corner. Okay. I don't know. To me, it seems like those movies are the same. Not the same plot, but it's like New York. They look kind of similar. Those movies feel hot. Like you're in a hot summer New York day,
Mm-hmm.
So I think they were made around the same time as well.
Doesn't it
Maybe
even
with
open
delayed.
with Hot Town somewhere in the city?
3 does,
Yeah, I think
but I
it's
don't think Independence Day
no, 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 it
is.
doesn't. But yeah, the three, yeah, three does. I heard three does. Okay, yeah, no, it does. It's kind of feels like that purposefully. The only thing I know about the making of this movie is that I know they chased the snow around. So a lot of those runway scenes were filmed in like three, four different states.
Jesus.
Um, and you think like, hey, why don't they just use a snow machine to do that? It's like, well, you're out on a runway, and a lot of those shots kind of go as far as the eye can see.
Hmm.
So it was cheaper to fly the plane wreckage in and light that on fire somewhere that had snow than it was to make snow
For
because
that
that
scene,
costs
yeah.
energy and everything. So, um, yeah, I respect the artistry behind it. It's not Rennie Harlan at its finest, but it's definitely the first like taste of a blockbuster movie that he got because I want to say this was the movie he did after Elm Street 4.
Yes, that's correct. But I mean,
And
I think he had a hard go of it because I think after this one, it was Cutthroat Island, right? And that was a
oh, was
bomb.
it?
Yeah, that was the Gina Davis, Matthew Modine, pirate swashbuckling adventure movie.
When was The Long Kiss Goodnight done?
Oh, that was like just after, because he was like married to Gina Davis, and he met her on Cutthroat Island,
Okay.
and that's why she was in A Long Kiss Goodnight. So I think like A Long Kiss Goodnight was after, like the movie after Cutthroat Island, because
Okay.
I want to say A Long Kiss Goodnight is like 94, 95. You know,
All right.
so this was 90. So
That's pretty good then. Three movies in 4 years.
yeah,
Not too much of a lull in there.
no, just enough so it's like you can keep doing work and no one's picked up that like you can't make a good movie yet. You know? So
Wow. Wow. No, I think he might have been like kind of the Michael Bay of his moment, where he can make things look cool, and the story's not quite there, but doesn't matter. Like you put butts in seats and you make these spectacle movies that people see, except Cutthroat Island or Monkey Island or whatever that was.
yeah, it's Cutthroat Island. I remember seeing it in the theaters, but I don't remember a damn thing about it other than the poster, which kind of looks like a Indiana Jones, Drew, whatever his name is, Drew
Hmm.
something. His style of artwork. He
Oh,
might
Drew
have been the
Struzan.
person. Yeah, Drew Struzan. He might have been the person to make the poster because it looks so similar to all the other stuff that he's done.
Okay.
But that was kind of like a popular movie poster aesthetic at the time, you know.
Well,
So,
yeah, and it was on the back of a lot of comic books. I remember that.
oh, speaking of on the back of something, did you see the Lethal Weapon uh ad in the magazine for the in this movie? Like Lethal Weapon 2 was in an ad in a magazine that the old lady was holding on the airplane that Holly Gennaro was on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There was
And
that,
I that
and
was
then
super convoluted how I described that, but
no. Yeah. I think we followed that, and then The Simpsons were on there because that was a new show at the time. So they're showing
do you
that on the
remember
airplane.
do you remember how controversial The Simpsons was when it came out? People were mad about The Simpsons, you know? And I remember I was like, I don't know, over at a neighborhood friend's house and my friend's mom scolded him because she heard him say eat my shorts, and it was like, we don't we're a respectable family and we don't say that type of thing in this home.
Wow.
Like, That's the kind of reaming my friend got, and I was like, it's the equivalent of leave me alone, you know,
Yeah.
like so. Yeah, I remember parents talking about how awful The Simpsons was and how it was corrupting the minds, the young minds of all us kids
If only they
when it
knew.
came out. Yeah,
If only they knew.
so
All right. Well, you want to close this down?
I mean, I don't really have anything more to say. Like, this is a fine
Do,
movie.
do an
There's some
actual
really, huh?
outro for a change. We got our YouTube handle on the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
So you can now find us at
finally.
youtube.com/@postcreditspodcast.
Yeah, not to gripe about that, but it's like, oh, we gotta wait for you to become more popular until you get your custom URL. It's like, oh, we have handles now. Everyone gets a custom URL. And then it's like, well, I guess you were just gatekeeping because. So,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll take
All
it.
right, YouTube. So, yeah, well, follow us on social media at Post Credits Podcast on Instagram and Instagram and Facebook. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. But yeah, you can find us there.
All right. Well, I'll join
Yippee
you next
Ky-yay,
week.
Mr. Falcon.
Mr. Falcon, as the flame goes up in the air onto the plane.
For those unaware,
That's probably a plot hole too.
yeah, for those unaware, there's an awful dubbing of this movie. There's a lot of F-bombs. There really is a lot of F-bombs in this movie. But without them, we wouldn't get the atrocious made-for-TV version of Die Hard 2. There's a supercut of all the voiceovers and ADR that you can find on YouTube. If you want a good laugh, I strongly recommend it. Because one, they don't sound like any of the other characters. It's not aligned with the movements of the mouth. You can honestly watch it and think someone else in another room is talking, and then it takes you a minute to realize that, oh, this is actually ADR. There isn't actually something wrong with the audio channel. It's just like this is their best attempt at ADR. It's pretty awful, but there's some nuggets in there. Mr. Falcon's one of them. Because that's the made for TV version of motherfucker. You know, is Mr. Falcon.
Mr. Falcon.
So stupid.
All right. Well, check that out. We'll put that down in the
Yeah.
show notes. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you next time.